Primetime Drive, Jackson's News Talk, 101.5 FM. John Avery Emison is with us. He's going to be doing a book signing this evening at 6 at Miss Ollie's, downtown Jackson on Lafayette Street. His most recent work is Martin Luther King, Congressional Cover-Up, The Railroading of James Earl Ray. And John Emison is from Crockett County, Tennessee.
Yep, Alamo.
Graduate of Union University, went to the University of Memphis, or Memphis State as it was then, went on to Oregon State. Mm-hmm. And you've been writing then how long, John?
Well, published my first book in 2009. So
okay, and it was about Abraham Lincoln.
It was the Civil War book, yes.
Okay, mm-hmm. And all of this. What got you on this topic here?
Well, I've always been interested in it because my great uncle Harry Avery was Commissioner of Correction at the time that Ray was pleaded guilty in Memphis,
okay. Right.
And was transported to the state penitentiary, and he began a self-authorized investigation, which got him fired by Governor Ellington in 2 months.
Okay. So he started his own investigation.
He started his own investigation, okay. Yes.
What prompted him to do that then?
Well, he had been an arson investigator for 30 years, so he was naturally curious about crime and criminals. And he believed at the time, I think, because we had a number of conversations back in that day, that he thought Ray was involved, but he certainly believed Ray could not have done this alone.
Okay. In your work, you profile some of the books, and one that came out, just last year or the year before, Hellhound?
Yes, Hellhound on his trail.
Okay. And the conclusion of all of these people is that he did act alone, and that's where this investigation ends or should end. What convinced you, or what got you on this trail to say, did your previous connections there surface enough stuff where you say, hey, this is worth looking into again?
Well, that was part of it, but what really got me interested is 20-something years ago, well, it was 1990, I interviewed James Earl Ray 4 times, and from 1990 to 1992, and none of these writers did. They never met the man. Okay. Some of them met some of his family. Okay. And I interviewed his brother, Jerry Ray, who lives over around McMinnville as well. But the statements that are made in some of those books, and there's a whole series of errors that virtually everyone has acknowledged is an error that keeps being repeated in the 4 books that I sort of preview, the 4 biographers who never met Ray. And so it was just natural to take a look at this, take a look at Ray as what capability did he have as a man? What opportunity did he have as a criminal on the run to do what the government claims he did? And I don't believe he did it. I don't believe he was the right guy. He was inept. In fact, he was discharged from the Army for ineptness 2 whole days before his 2-year hitch was up. So he wasn't a sharpshooter. He had no means of stalking Martin Luther King. That's just ridiculous to think that it did. And part of the problem in these books that I highlight in my book and I address from the standpoint of the evidence is he didn't even know where Reverend King was going to be staying. The Memphis police didn't know until they met him at the airport. Okay. He declined their personal bodyguards, security detail, and they followed him to the motel, to the Lorraine Motel. So if the Memphis police didn't know, how is a guy like James Earl Ray, who had never spent a night in Memphis prior to the 2 nights that he spent there as a man on the run?
John Avery Emison is with us. The book is called The Martin Luther King Congressional Cover-Up, The Railroading of James Earl Ray. He'll be signing copies of this book this evening at 6 o'clock at Miss Ollie's, downtown Jackson, right here on Lafayette Street. How then do you see him then? Was he part of this effort, guided by others?
Oh, no question he was part of it, but he was unwitting. I mean, James Earl Ray would be the last person, if you were conspiring to assassinate a prominent American, he would be the last person you would tell, because if he rolled through a stop sign and he has 20 years, he was a criminal on the run.
Right.
He had 20 years hanging over his head from the Missouri penitentiary. So he would roll over on anybody at a heartbeat with a tail light out, get pulled over, whatever, to try to lessen his own situation. Now the title of the book, The Congressional Cover-Up, that comes from a doctored transcript, which the Shelby County District Attorney's Office doctored. Nobody's ever written about this before. This is brand new. I found 2 different competing transcripts in the Shelby County archives and began digging through that. Eventually wound up finding the 2 people responsible for typing that transcript that day, which was March 10th, 1969 in Memphis. And one of those individuals is retired in Chester County. So perhaps he's listening here. I hope he is. Okay. But the point of the book with the congressional cover-up is it's almost certain that the House Select Committee on Assassinations, which was enabled by the U.S. House of Representatives to reopen both the King assassination and the John F. Kennedy assassinations reopen those in the mid-1970s. It is inconceivable to me that the House Select Committee did not know there were 2 transcripts, that one of them was doctored, and that they were using the doctored one. Okay. Now, if a one-man band from Alamo, Tennessee, who has no book advance, no graduate assistance, can discover what's in the record, how could 200 government lawyers, I mean, you probably have a lot of incompetent government lawyers, but to think that you're going to find out of 200, all of them are incompetent, that nobody on that committee staff discovered this is inconceivable.
Okay. We're talking to John Avery Emison, and John's work is called The Martin Luther King Congressional Cover-Up, The Railroading of James Earl Ray. What is your feeling about why we got off track on this thing from the very beginning, and why he pleaded guilty? Because it always mystified me that he was able to get as far as he did through as many countries as he did. I mean, it's just like, because I interviewed James Earl Ray not long before he died at the Lois DeBerry facility there in Nashville. There were a couple of things. One thing, he let me know that he didn't work. I asked him about working. It was like, no.
Yeah, that's right.
Point of pride, right? Point of pride.
Yeah.
It was like, no. You know, I didn't work when I went to Canada. When I was living in Canada, no, I did not work. And the story was unchanged in all of this, and then the pleading guilty, you know, and all that whole thing was just kind of a
he was clearly coerced into pleading guilty.
And then the fact that when I met him and looked at him, it was kind of this thing, you know, I couldn't get out of the country. I think I'm a pretty bright guy, okay? To be on the run from Memphis, Tennessee, and to wind up in all these different places.
Right, thought, Portugal.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like
England.
Yeah, it's like I'd do good. Like I said, I think I'm a pretty sharp guy, you know, to get out of the county without being detected somewhere.
No, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
So the question is, how do we get off the track? Well, we got off the track because the U.S. intelligence community is highly likely to be responsible for the murder of Dr. King. Okay. And I make that case in the book. I make that case in part because the U.S. intelligence community supplied Ray with 4 extremely sophisticated aliases. This was either not known or ignored by the House Select Committee in the late 1970s. They did know about the aliases, but they didn't know the significance and the details about it. That didn't come along until a college professor by the name of Philip Melanson wrote about this in the mid-1980s, which unfortunately the mainstream media and the New York publishing houses ignored it away. But Ray had 4 primary aliases. All of them were approximately his height, his weight, his gender, his race, his hair, and eye color. In other words, they all had physical descriptions similar to each other and similar to him.
Okay.
Now, in addition, Steve, are you having trouble getting out of Madison County, much less out of the country,
right.
When you're on the run?
Yeah.
Try making up four names
Yeah.
of people you have never met, and they all, in your adulthood, look a lot like you. And on top of that, they are all 4 real Canadian men who live within a 5-mile radius of each other in Toronto.
Okay.
Could you make that up?
I couldn't.
No.
Yeah, I mean that was the thing.
Neither could Ray.
Okay.
Neither could anybody.
Well, I mean that was the thing in having that one opportunity to meet him. It was just like, it just didn't come across as this super sophisticated, I could slick my way through any security kind of guy.
He was a ninth grade dropout.
Yeah.
To all the teachers out here listening, he was probably the worst junior high student they've ever had.
Okay.
If you're a teacher out there and listening, think about the worst 2 or 3 students you ever had in junior high school, and you're pretty well describing Ray.
John Avery Emison is with us. The book is called The Martin Luther King Congressional Cover-Up, The Railroading of James Earl Ray. He'll be signing copies of that this evening, coming up at 6 o'clock at Miss Ollie's, downtown Jackson.